you the only person I ever met belonged in the sky. Just remember you belong down here with us too, okay?
Your commanding officer called you one of the best pilots he's ever seen. It must be hard being the
Naval Aviator? Absolutely.
The whole world's looking different.
Did you ever think that you'd be in a squadron with a colored aviator?
Lieutenant Tom Hudner.
Jesse Brown.
It's good to meet you.
Aloha. This is Trinidad the Island Man, your Island Man, coming to you live once again from beautiful Hawaii here on the island of Oahu, bringing you, yes you, the best movie reviews on the island of Oahu here in Hawaii. And, well, hope you guys all had a wonderful Thanksgiving or Indigenous Peoples holiday here in the United States. And if not, just a nice weekend overall throughout the world. You know, I think I ate too much, but I enjoyed it. But on Thanksgiving, I also had the opportunity to see a new movie that has come out called Devotion. Now this stars Jonathan Majors, Glenn Powell, straight off of his Top Gun Maverick showing, also playing a Navy pilot along with Jonathan Majors, but this being during the Korean War, the Forgotten War. And let me just say, shame on you, Sony, for trying to make this movie forgotten, just like the Korean War. But I digress. I'll get into that more. Remember our rating scale. Shock a thumbs up. It's good to see. For Devotion, shock a thumbs down. It's junk. I don't recommend it. And for Devotion, starring Jonathan Majors, Glenn Powell, about, you know, set during the Korean War back in the 1950s, two American naval pilots. It is a shock a thumbs up. Now let me just say that the more I see of this Jonathan Majors guy, the more excited I get for Ant-Man 3 Quantumania, because as you know, he stars, or will be starring, as Kang the Conqueror in that movie. He was Kang in Loki, that we'd seen in the last episode of Loki season 1. Man. And which set off great things for the upcoming Phase 5 of Marvel. And I know he's been in some other TV shows, I guess, where he got a start. People say he was really good in Lovecraft Country. But, you know, honestly, I wasn't looking for any of those shows. I didn't watch them. Okay, I tuned in to see what's her name? Yeah, that's it. I tuned into Lovecraft Country, like one episode, to see what's her name, naked. But you know, did I tune in because Jonathan Majors is a great actor? No, I had no idea. But you know, having seen him now, you know, fully starring in Devotion, he does an incredible job. Basically, essentially, he is carrying this movie. And in the 50s, facing racism, discrimination as a naval aviator in the United States Navy, having to deal with that stereotyping, discrimination, racism against society, his peers, unfortunately in the military, and still trying to achieve his dreams of, being a naval pilot, is what he has to face throughout this movie. And add on top of that, being, a husband to a wife, father to a, baby daughter, having to go off to war in Korea, that is just, if that alone is not drama and stress for you, for him, enough to make anyone crack, I don't know what is. But Jonathan Majors, he carries himself throughout this performance impeccably. Glenn Powell, as we have seen him playing pilots before, both not only in Top Gun Maverick, but if you think all those years back, couple of years back, what was it, 2016, 2017, for that movie Hidden Figures, he played, John Glenn, orbiting the moon, he would orbit the moon later on, but orbiting the Earth in that. So, he's really, Glenn Powell's really got a niche for himself in these, military, let alone aviation movies. And he's only been getting better. Here he stars or co-stars next to Jonathan Majors as his wingman, his partner, his friend, eventually, fighting against the system and society along with Jonathan Majors, against discrimination and racism, trying to be, his friend, and eventually his squadron leader, despite what others might think of a black man, being a naval aviator. But both of them face these situations with true grit. And to Glenn Powell's credit, and the credit of his character in this movie, he does try to come to terms and understand where Jonathan Majors' character is coming from. Glenn Powell being a white naval aviator, and even before coming into the Navy, if not rich, at least of middle class, from white suburban society, never having to face the persecution and problems of being black that Jonathan Majors' character throughout this movie faces. And there are more than once during this movie he is often confused at the attitude that Jonathan Major portrays as his character facing certain things, or how he takes into account certain situations which paint his reactions differently than how Glenn Powell does see them, and how he should react to certain situations, Jonathan Majors. All because he's, had to face these problems differently, and even in overcoming certain obstacles, no matter how good he has become, and how lauded his actions are and his talents, he's still persecuted and maybe held to a stricter, higher code, more willing to chastise him than, even in the Navy, in the military, whereas a white naval aviator or officer would just, it wouldn't even be an issue for them. But for him, it's a career-ending. So it could be career-ending. This is based on a book of the same name, Devotion. Now, one, I've never read this book. Two, I did serve in Korea back in 2006. Served in Seoul on the ground. But having known some aviators, this really, this movie impacted me hard. And having been in the country and seen, despite it being all, almost westernized, to an extent with Seoul and everything. Just, the history in South Korea is there. There's a big military museum there where you can see any number of aircraft that was used during the war, armaments, tanks, artillery, you name it, it's all there. You can go to the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, which, America didn't win the Korean War. It's still a hot war in many respects. There's just been, a ceasefire. And it's the longest ceasefire. And as you've seen in the news, more saber rattling by North Korea and their missiles firing, into the ocean. Whether they want it in the ocean or not. It's still a dangerous place. So that definitely gives you more feeling for this movie as well. I would have changed the name. Sure, the book's name, Devotion. I would have named this different. Maybe The Forgotten War. Jonathan Majors, Glenn Powell in The Forgotten War, Korea, or something like that. I mean, it's not all about Korea in this movie, and it does focus mainly on Jonathan Majors' character and his persecution that he faces as a black man in the military. Very, very similar themes as we had seen earlier in a much earlier movie, again, Navy movie called Men of Honor. This one with Cuban Gooding Jr. and Robert De Niro. And instead of being Navy master divers in that one, Glenn Powell and Jonathan Majors are, naval aviators, pilots in this movie. But still very much the same themes, still struggling against persecution, discrimination, to trying to gain their goals of becoming top in their field. This is a sad movie. There's about war, about loss, but I think just a name change would have made this a little bit, maybe more impactful or more exciting for people to watch, calling it like The Forgotten War or something like that, for the movie's sake, and then based on the book Devotion. Because with the name Devotion, it's like, devotion. It's like, you want to see devotion? What is that? Some love movie? Some romantic movie? Some family drama? Devotion? It's like, what the heck is that? I think they've done a disservice to the profitability of this movie. Not only that, but frick, man, trying to see this movie is like twisting arms here. Sony, what are you doing? I know maybe you didn't put out much into the marketing for this movie, but this is a good movie. I gave it a shock of thumbs up. I'm giving it a shock of thumbs up. One showing once a day during the afternoon. You know, it's like, look, I know Black Panther's out and whatnot. You know, and maybe this isn't, you know, the happy-go-lucky movie of the holidays, but I mean, geez, this is a good movie, Sony. You should get behind your movie and push it out into theaters more. It's like, there's no reason that, you know, there's more showings, despite Black Panther in the show, or in the theater. There's more showings of Black Adam, who's still been out, you know, for 3-4 weeks now, and of the Menu, you know, than there is for Devotion. And it's like, and that's just a crying shame. If you were going to do that, if you didn't want to put this movie in theaters, you know, and I mean, it was in my neighborhood theater for like one day. At a time I couldn't see it. I had to go see it opening night at a different theater downtown. And still that was like the only showing, and it's still only getting one showing at that big theater downtown. It's not even at my neighborhood theater anymore. They just had one showing one day. It's like, what the heck? You know, this movie deserves to be seen. I think especially with the older audience who remember maybe the Korean War, especially after the heights that we'd had with Glenn Powell. He was in Top Gun Maverick. You know, people would be willing to go see that. Clips of this movie show some of the aerial footage of the movie. And yes, maybe it's definitely more CGI than Top Gun Maverick, but it's still exciting to see. And I think it would have pulled in more people if there had been more showings of it for Sony to see this movie Devotion, especially with how good Top Gun Maverick was. So it's just incredible how Sony, you know, just seemed to like give up on this movie right out the gate. And it's a good movie. I recommend this movie, shock a thumbs up. Try to see it wherever, however you can. If it's at theaters in your area, if they haven't hidden it for some reason. You know, talking about Korea, the Forgotten War, Devotion, the Forgotten Movie, apparently. You should really try to seek this out, especially if, you know, you enjoy, you know, war movies. If you liked Top Gun Maverick, the original Top Gun, if you liked movies like Men of Honor, then you'll enjoy this movie as well. It is heartfelt and impactful and, you know, somewhat, you know, sorrowful as well, but definitely a very good movie that should be getting more attention. All right. This is Trinidad the Island Man, your Island Man, giving Devotion a shock a thumbs up. Try to find this movie and see it in theaters. At the very least, look for it somewhere on streaming when it comes. Don't forget about this movie. Unfortunately, like, you know, the Forgotten War of Korea. All right. Mahalo and aloha.